So basically the government conspired to kill a goat. That's insane.
We have law enforcement. We have the local fair officials who run the state district fair. And then we have Gavin Newsom's appointee to the California Department of Food and Agriculture. So it's several levels of government.
Greetings and welcome to the Healing Law Podcast. Today we have a very amazing guest, Miss Vanessa Shakib. How are you doing today? Of Advancing Law for Animals.
Hey there. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So it's an honor. Like, I've been looking into your work and like, oh man, you've done so much. It's pretty cool. You know, the Cedar the Goat thing I'd heard about. I think I'd heard about it through like Alex Jones or one of his people. It was a weird source to hear that from. And now I'm like, it's pretty interesting that you did that. But it's not even the most interesting thing you've done, really, in my opinion.
I'd love to hear what you think the most interesting thing I've done is.
Well, I was looking at this speech that I found from September 8th of 2019 at the IARC, I guess. What is that?
The International Animal Rights Conference. All right, we're going back in time.
Well, I only got a chance to listen to like 10 minutes, but what you said was federal agencies effectively make up the fourth branch of government, and you're saying that there's maybe 78 to 137, and you specifically called out the USDA and the FDA in 2019, right before the whole pandemic and all sorts of things. You feel free to go where you want with that.
Yeah, look, here's the thing with federal agencies. They fall under the executive branch, and they can only act to the extent that Congress delegates authority to them. So now, what does this mean? Like, what is the nuts and bolts of what this means? An agency can't just do whatever it wants. An agency has to wait until Congress passes a law and gives them the power to take specific actions within a specific scope. And agencies need to stay within that lane. And even when they're in that lane, a lot of rules and restrictions apply. So when we're thinking about, okay, how can we help animals? There's a lot of ways we could go about it, right? We can put pressure on the companies who own and use animals. We can also sue the companies who own and use animals. But another avenue is taking a look at what federal agencies are doing, because federal agencies regulate the use of animals in many contexts. And so that gets us into the world of administrative law. And it allows lawyers like myself to get a microscope, fine-tooth comb, and look exactly what are these agencies doing. And when they do it, are they crossing their T's and are they dotting their I's?
And in one of those regards, you were part of this lawsuit against the National Institute of Health in regards to the foreign animal lab loophole, kind of like closed. So you want to explain to us what that is?
Yeah, so this case is still pending. I actually just filed a motion for summary judgment in this case. This case is super wild. So here's what most people do not know. The NIH is handing out $20 billion a year. That's billion with a B. $20 billion a year in subsidies for animal experimentation, but not just here in the US, all around the world and over 50 countries around the world, including Tunisia, Bangladesh, Russia, China, you name it, the list goes on and on, right? So our tax dollars are going all around the world to subsidize animal experimentation. About 21 to 24% of that 20 billion is going abroad. So Congress passed a law, makes a lot of sense. It's a law in furtherance of transparency of public funds and animal welfare. So Congress says in a federal law, yo, if you get this money for taxpayers subsidized animal experimentation, there's a couple things you need to do. You need an animal care committee. It has to be of a certain composition. It has to review animal welfare. It has to take notes. It has to report to the agency, right? All of these very common sense requirements if you're using taxpayer dollars for animal experimentation. But for whatever reason, although that's the law passed by Congress, NIH said, well, if you're a foreign recipient, you don't need to. And there's a different, lesser set of rules for foreign recipients of taxpayer dollars. So we're calling this the Foreign Animal Lab loophole. And it is illegal because guess what? A federal agency cannot contradict the express words of Congress. In our case, the statute is very clear. The NIH filed a motion to dismiss our case. We beat that motion to dismiss. We now just filed our motion for summary judgment, and that's legal speak for, hey, judge, there's no dispute here. It's a very clear legal issue, and you can decide this legal issue based on our brief.
Right. And one of the big things I read in the article on your site was that they don't even have to disclose the documents. There's no animal care oversight like of these labs overseas. And like if you want to access the documents, there's a blackout on it. Like you can't even access anything about their data, right?
So the NIH had a completely different reporting scheme for foreign labs versus American labs, which why? Why is there less reporting for foreign labs than American labs? Since we filed this lawsuit, they changed the rules a little bit, but the bottom line is there's an asymmetry as between American recipients and foreign recipients of this taxpayer money. And the bottom line is it's a lower standard for foreign recipients. And when we're talking about foreign countries that have lesser or no animal welfare laws, especially for animals in laboratories, I mean, this is asking for cruelty. This is the fox guarding the hen house, so to speak, and it makes no sense.
I mean, even with that oversight, do you think that the lab testing in America is like up to the standards of what it should be as far as like fairness to animals?
No. I mean, there's so many problems there. First and foremost, why are we still testing on animals? My client, the White Coat Waste Project, does a great job of finding, exposing, and defunding cruel and wasteful experiments, taxpayer funded, on animals. This is something that we can completely clean up, both for the animals and for taxpayers. The federal government is the largest funder of animal experimentation. It's outspending industry something like 2-to-1, especially with what we're seeing in technology. This is outdated. We can absolutely do better. And then now we get to another problem. We do have laws on the books for example, American facilities experimenting on animals. But the largest federal animal welfare law protecting animals in labs does not apply to rats and mice, the majority of animals in laboratories. So we already have a loophole for most of animals in labs. And then on top of it, the facilities are not inspected enough. To the extent they're self-reporting, we can't rely on that self-reporting. So the system has a lot of problems, and it's animals and taxpayers who are suffering as a result.
So I want to take a step back and just ask you very plainly, like, what is it that got you in animal law to begin with? Like, what was it?
You know, it was on accident. I'm a longtime animal lover, and I was, doing my thing, going about life. I went to law school. I had a traditional legal career. I did some government entity liability. I sued some government entities for, in California, illegal taxes. I did some consumer protection work. But I just wasn't fulfilled. And maybe 8 years into my practice, I just started thinking, I'm a very passionate person. I got to swim with the current. The current is my passion. And I thought, I love animals. I'm a skilled litigator. So I exploded my life and I started a nonprofit law firm for animals called Advancing Law for Animals.
And that's advancinglawforanimals.org if people want to check that out, I believe.
Yep. And you can find us on social media as well.
Cedar the Goat. So I'd heard about it briefly, but it was I didn't get the full scoop by any means. Do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, it's hard to give you the full scoop because it's a strange story that spanned over a period of weeks, but let me give you some of the highlights. First off, let's talk about the 4-H program. The 4-H program is a government is Government Youth Development. So it's essentially a government-run kids club. And we have participation from the federal as well as state government to make this kids club happen. It offers a range of activities from science to civics, but it still maintains a program where children buy baby animals, raise them, take care of them daily, fall in love with them, and at the end of this program, they're forced to exhibit the animal. The highest bidder doesn't purchase the animal, the highest bidder gets the animal's meat. So you can imagine it's 2026. A lot of children don't do well in this program. Some do, some don't, right? It's mixed. Some kids don't do well. And so it's become a bit of a hot button cultural issue. So that's the context. When the children auction their animals, it's called a terminal only auction, meaning you as a purchaser can only buy meat. You cannot buy the animal still alive, which is strange, right? That a government program is putting this requirement of must kill the animal. So this is the context. My clients are a mom and daughter. The daughter was at the time 9 years old. She bought a baby goat, Cedar. She took care of him every day. She walked with him. She played with him. She fell in love with him as anyone would with a puppy or a kitten. It comes time for the fair, and she exhibits Cedar at the youth livestock auction. The person who placed the highest bid was none other than state senator and then Republican gubernatorial candidate Brian Dahle. He placed the highest bid. He did not pay. Following that, the little girl really is understanding what is happening, and she wants to leave with her goat. Now, the fair rules say leaving the event is a form of exhibitor misconduct. You forfeit your proceeds and you can't come back and participate. Okay, great. And beyond that, let's think big picture. This is a kids club. If you agree to participate and then you leave, it's a kids club. It's at most a breach of contract, but like who would go there? It is a kids club. This is a 9-year-old. All right. So mom and daughter leave with Cedar. The state fair officials who operate this fair get very upset. This is a state administered fair. Like I said, the 4-H program is the result of a relationship between federal and state government. Mom, for safekeeping, temporarily places the goat hundreds of miles away. She sends an email to the state fair saying, hey, we'll pay you whatever, but this is our goat. We want to keep this goat. The fair writes back and says, you have to bring this goat back. She claps back and says, hey, this is our goat and I will get a lawyer. So the story should really end here. The fair officials blow the mom up. We're calling law enforcement, bring this goat back. Long story short, to make a long story short, after threatening her with felony theft, by the way, when the fair is out, by the way, max $60, they're threatening her with felony theft. Eventually, I don't have time to get into how this happens. A bunch of cops get a warrant for the wrong address. They drive hundreds of miles to seize Cedar from somewhere Cedar has never been. They extract some more information. The cops end up at his actual location, hundreds of miles away. The cops seize Cedar without a warrant. They turn him over to these state fair officials who hold him for weeks and eventually kill him while texting their intent to keep it a secret and to hide the circumstances of Cedar's death. Okay. So when we look at this in terms of the Constitution, what has happened here? We have seizure of property without due process, meaning without notice to Cedar's family. And we also have a warrantless seizure because the law treats seizure two ways. The police officers taking Cedar is a seizure. They took him. It's a temporary seizure. But then we have a permanent seizure by killing Cedar. So we have constitutional claims for the lack of notice and due process, taking him, holding him, and killing him without notifying the family. As this case is pending, it went viral. Then Sam Stanton from the Sacramento Bee, he does a deep dive. He finds out the gas money that these cops paid to go drive and pick up this goat exceeded the amount of money the fair was out. So that really just blew the lid off the story in terms of the taxpayer waste and the police misconduct. It gets even crazier. Rob Bonta's office, the California Attorney General, straight up countersues the mom for indemnification, which is basically cash money, an amount of money that would devastate this working family. We're in court trying to defeat this countersuit. So we thought after we defeated the countersuit, all right, smooth sailing. We are going to go get into discovery. We'll find out what happened here, and it will be a simple case. It was not a simple case. Spoiler alert. Each person involved refused to tell the truth, had conflicting stories of what happened to Cedar. We ended up subpoenaing phone records. We ended up deposing Gavin Newsom's appointee to the California Department of Food and Agriculture. We ended up subpoenaing his phone records, all to find out who done it and why. Ultimately, we were never able to uncover why was Cedar secretly held for weeks. But we do know ultimately that he was killed. We have text messages surrounding the fact of his death. We settled with the police officers for $300,000, and the case is still going forward against those state fair officials.
And I do. So you mentioned the bidder by name. I do believe I heard somewhere he agreed that he was okay with her keeping the goat. Is that correct?
You know, we have limited information as to what exactly happened. Our initial understanding was that State Senator Dolly was really on board with the family and what was right. Discovery in this case revealed, as you can find in our public filings, that the defendant in this case continued to maintain contact with Senator Dolly throughout the time in question. We also subpoenaed a staff member. We were able to obtain some internal emails from his office. When Cedar was being secretly held by the defendants in this case, his office was getting updates. And so, what exactly happened, I don't know, but he was very in the weeds as this story was progressing.
So basically the government conspired to kill a goat. I mean, that's insane.
Well, I mean, I think it's not even just that, because it's several layers. We have law enforcement. We have the local fair officials who run the state district fair. And then we have Gavin Newsom's appointee to the California Department of Food and Agriculture weighing in on this matter, which was why we deposed him. So it's several levels of government, which begs the question, why? Right? This begs the question, why?
It's very strange. I mean, yeah, that many people working to get that done, like with secrets and stuff. It's like, so this question here, what weakness in the legal system do you think the case exposed the most?
And specifically in Cedar's case? Well, I don't think the weakness is in the legal system per se, because we are in court, although we are on appeal, and I can explain why. I think the biggest weakness that we're seeing here is that the government is administering a kids club where not only are children forced to kill an animal, but they cannot peaceably leave with their animal and simply pay any money damages. And then on top of that, let's just say you roll up to this event and you place the highest bid on an animal. You're not allowed to take the animal out alive. And so this whole process really needs to adapt to 2026. Children should be able to leave. If it causes any monetary loss, that can be dealt with. And on the other side of it, if you're buying an animal out of this program, you can elect whether to buy meat or the live animal.
I mean, makes sense.
Yeah.
Very
When we
strange.
when we talk about the shortcoming legally, like I said, we settled with the law enforcement and we're proceeding against the state fair officials. Those were the individuals threatening the mom with a felony. Those were the individuals who ultimately held Cedar for weeks and killed him. The judge found that qualified immunity applied here. In other words, that what happened was reasonable. And so this really is a shortcoming because qualified immunity might make sense. Imagine a police officer is making a split second life or death choice based on circumstances that are putting him or her in imminent danger, right? That's one thing. But here we have state government officials who had weeks to figure out the appropriate course of action. They had an email from the mom saying, this is our goat. We're going to get a lawyer. And so what they did here, especially when they're text messaging how it's going to stay a secret, was done maliciously. We argue that it was done in violation of the First Amendment. It was First Amendment viewpoint discrimination. We're arguing that they violated the law simply because of their hostility towards our client's view that Cedar belonged at home, not on a dinner plate.
Have you done a lot of other work in agriculture, like with the animal rights for animals in agriculture?
Yes, right now, through my law firm, Advancing Law for Animals, we have a case pending against Foster Farms, specifically related to a hatchery in Northern California that processes a few million chicks per week. These chicks will ultimately be transferred to another facility. They will grow and they will ultimately be slaughtered and sold as meat. But our lawsuit centers around the part of the production chain where they are hatched. And so there, we're alleging that the business practices there are illegal because we argue that Foster Farms is systemically, reliably, and knowingly operating their business in a way that violates the state anti-cruelty statute in order to up their profits and decrease their costs. California is very unique. Its anti-cruelty statute protects animals in the food system, and the law is super clear that you cannot cause unnecessary suffering to an animal. And my client, Animal Equality, its undercover investigation revealed animals drowning in chemical foam, the machinery moving so quickly, the animals are flung about, they're getting stuck inside the system itself, left to languish, among other truly horrific acts.
This would probably end up being like if they're selling this, they're selling the chicks, or you're just saying that because they have chicken meal in dog food and cat food, and like that's all the scraps of this abuse. I would assume is like kind of ending up in dog and cat food. It's some sort of a chicken meal.
These chickens, you're right that animal products can end up in dog and cat meal, but Foster Farms is, I believe, the fifth largest poultry company in the US. So the chicks at this facility are being hatched so they can be then sent to essentially an industrial warehouse where they're gonna grow until they're slaughtered. So these are chicks intended for human consumption. And so the whole, the core of the claim is the whole facility is running in violation of the law because it's turning a profit by cutting animal welfare corners.
Well, there's no doubt about that. With most major farms are doing that somewhere. It's insane, kind of what big agriculture has done in general, whether it's farm animals or just regular crops, like even just plants and how we grow corn and how we grow the animal feed and poison the environment and all that. Speaking of which, so I have like a sponsor for this, and I got to do this. My hands are tied every episode. My sponsor, OperationAmericanGrit.com. It's fulvic acid. Have you ever heard of fulvic acid?
Folic acid?
Fulvic. It's with Fulvic.
Oh, no, tell me more.
Do you know Shilajit? It's a form of fulvic acid. Now, most people don't know what it is. This is the biggest challenge here. So when things decompose, like plants and organic matter decomposes, it deposits into the earth. And if it stays in the earth long enough, you'll end up with coal or tar, and then we extract all sort of synthetics from that. But there's a different form. It's basically an ancient compost where it's still bioactive and bioavailable, and it integrates with our bodies and feeds a natural plant, natural bacteria and stuff. And there's a lot of things about this with agriculture. In fact, like this deposit was found because it's a deposit of earth minerals, like organic tree matter deposited in the ground. And these pigs at this one farm, like 100 and something years ago, were eating this clay, and they weren't getting sick while disease was wiping out all these other farms. Like these pigs were getting wiped out, but these pigs weren't getting sick, and they were eating this clay. So they dug into it and figured out how to process it. It's hyper beneficial for people and
Interesting.
animals and
Is
plants.
that
It's,
oh, so this product sponsoring your show?
yeah, it's my brand, but
I got it, got it.
yeah, I can send you. It's like you can. There's so many different applications for it. It's got agricultural applications, but basically, it's running in the background of everything, everywhere, all the time. It's in the dirt, but it's been
Interesting.
kind of wiped out. Like how like they have everything synthetic now, and it's killing the natural bacteria and stuff in our lives, like in our guts, and that leads to a lot of illness, and it's happening to animals. It starts with the growing and agriculture and
So
how plants and animals.
I
Hmm.
take it you're passionate about your health.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so
And
that
people's
means
health.
factory farmed animals as food is probably a concern for you.
Yeah, I went vegan for like 7 years. Now I've been so bad though. I try to keep it local, but now I eat meat, but like, I try to like get it from a local place and not just anything. I'm gonna eat it.
I
But yeah,
understand. Yeah,
even then, like it's so unavoidable if you don't want to support that kind of thing though, because it's everywhere.
it's really hard if you're in the store, right? How is that meat there? It is everywhere.
And meat and cheese for days. It's crazy.
Hmm.
Non-stop feeding 30 million people or 333 million people in America eating that much meat.
Yeah, it's wild. And so California, for example, passed Proposition 12, which improved conditions for farmed animals. It survived an attack by industry, lawsuit after lawsuit. The Supreme Court left Proposition 12 intact. And right now, there's a provision of the Farm Bill that, if passed, would ruin the ability of states to pass stronger laws for animals in the food system. It's a really
Mm.
scary time to think states could lose the ability to protect their own food animals and food supply.
Yes, for sure. See, because like you're concerned about the animal thing, but like I've looked at it from like the plants and how like the people are eating it like in a similar way. Because like, did you ever hear like Proposition 37 with the genetically modified things that they were trying to pass years ago, and how that's now evolved into what we have as bioengineered food labels?
Interesting. I'm not familiar with those details.
Proposition 37 in California is pretty fascinating, but that was like 2012,
All right,
and
I'm
it
going to
was
look
like
into it.
it was a huge thing. What would you? Let me see. All right, let me get back on topic here. I keep these pretty short, so we're about to wrap it up, but I want to make sure. Let's see. So, like, what do you think the public should be like most aware of that people are totally unaware of when it comes to animal law? Like, what is the biggest thing that people are not seeing that you kind of want people to see or wish people would see about animal law and how we treat animals?
I mean, I don't think most people know animal law is a thing. So thank you for letting me come on and say, hey, I'm an animal lawyer. It is a relatively new multidisciplinary area of law, even though, people have had disputes about animals since the beginning of our legal system. Those have been disputes over, who owns this wild animal or you hurt my cow. But we haven't seen really lawsuits treating animals as the de facto client emerge since about the 70s. And since then, it is a growing field that really touches every area of law because animals touch every area of our life. And so what I like to do as an animal lawyer in this space is educate the public, journalists, lawyers, judges on the fact that we have this emerging practice of law and what it really means for the public, for taxpayers, and for animals.
Awesome. And if people want to check you out, it is advancinglaw4animals.org and vanessashakib.com, correct? And
That's me.
you want, is
Yeah.
there anywhere else you want people to find you at?
I'm easy to find. I'm on all the socials.
Yeah, there's a bunch on you out there. I have to take a look at some more of your work because definitely interesting. And thank you so much for coming on here. We'll wrap it up. This has been the Healing Law Podcast. Thank you all for joining us. Y'all be well now.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.